It goes without saying, but I think Fallout New Vegas was the best out of all the Fallouts. Yes, even of 1 and 2. I mean, 1, again, was good, and 2, like, it wasn't as good as 1, but was better. But I think New Vegas really brought Fallout to what it used to be. Because, I mean, you had Brotherhood, then you had 3, which, I have my concessions with 3, but I thought it was fine. But turns out they're making a new Fallout TV show. Yes. So, and I heard about this like months ago. It was alleged by Christopher Nolan. And I was pretty hyped. I was pretty hyped. But then he made then it was like, oh, well, it's the Oppenheimer movie. I was like, oh, well, I mean, the Oppenheimer was fine, but then it turned out that they're actually making the Fallout TV show. And though I'm skeptical, I feel like there are directions they could take this to where, you know, even people who haven't even heard of the Fallout universe would enjoy it. But my skepticism is because it's current year, I don't know if they have what it takes to make a genuinely good Fallout that can really encapsulate what made Fallout. And to me, what made Fallout was the bleakness of everything, you know? Like, I know in 1, spoilers by the way, the whole point of Fallout 1 was the super mutants and the master. And then you met the Brotherhood, and they were actually pretty decent. And then in 2 was pretty much the Brotherhood has failed, and now the Enclave replaced them. I don't know anything about Brotherhood, but I know in 3 they kind of retconned a decent amount of the story. Like, I know in the super mutants in 3 were effectively just orcs, right? They just screamed incoherent bullshit at you and wanted to cave your face in, which wasn't the super mutants in 2 or in 1, right? The super mutants in Fallout 2 actually wanted to do good despite being few in number because they don't reproduce, which is what you found out in 1. And they weren't just mindless idiots. I mean, they lived a long time and had a lot to think about. And in 1, they had their own philosophy, their own duty. It's like they got from the master the fact that they were pretty much going to replace humanity in a world that humanity effectively died. And again, 1 and 2 really brought that conspiracy out, along with other things. I mean, I know in 1 you had the whole Junktown sub arc. Then you had the thing with the followers of the apocalypse. And again, going to New Vegas, like, I can't even begin to talk about what made that game just fucking good. Like, you just need to play it. But if you're trying to wrap a video game series into movie format or TV show format, right? People are fine with homages, but. And I do think the one thing that they're doing that I like is the fact that they're making a completely different story within the Fallout universe. So Fallout often looks like a distant past, but it's really the far off future, and actually it's the end of life as we know it. Not entirely. See, the point of 2, spoilers by the way, was despite all the apocalyptic events that happen, and despite the rhetoric, life still continues. Births continue, people exist, people coexist despite all that. So I wouldn't say it's the end of life as we know it. I just think in two, the idea was the the human desire to live despite everything. That's why in one, again, spoilers, during the end, the only way you could really tell the master that his experiment about the super mutants just flat out will not work is if you talk to every single individual person that you come across about them. And at first it didn't seem like that big of a plot point, but it actually wraps up pretty good in one, because then that's the only way you can convince the master that what he was doing wouldn't work. Like, you cannot talk him down from a moral perspective. He does not care if humanity dies. To him, the super mutants will just replace them. Like, they're one dominant species replacing another. You have to talk them down on the logical perspective. The fact that they do not reproduce and they will eventually die. Like, they live a long time, but they're not invincible. They're not immortal, right? In the new series debuting on Amazon's Prime Video on April 2077, which is or was the era of robots, hover cars, and deep and abiding nostalgia for the America of the 1940s. Everything from the clothes to the entertainment to the vehicle mimicked the looks of the bygone age, albeit with a sci-fi tilt. That retro-futuristic aesthetic was one of the charms of the mega-selling video game series that inspired the show. Again, it was a completely different aesthetic look at, futuristic artistic style. And, I thought it was fine. Again, you didn't get a lot of that, because at least in 3, which is when I started the series, everything was destroyed, dreary, and gray. And I think about it. Did I think 4 was better than 3? Having replayed them? Because if I wouldn't have replayed 3, I would have thought 3 was better. But then I replayed 3. And 4 kept me playing. Finish the game. They pretty much sold you the ability to keep playing as DLC, which in the Broken Steel DLC, which is bullshit, in my opinion. But yeah, I'd say I thought 4 was better, because 4 had, base building and all that, which took up my time. But now, New Vegas is better than both of them by far. All of them, in my opinion. Like, I will die on this hill. Mass Extinction was just the starting point of Fallout, which was developed for TV by Westworld's creator and husband and wife Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy. After the incendiary mushroom clouds, the story flashed forward 119 years. How did humanity fare over those blighted 2 centuries? Lucy, one of the lead characters played by Yellow Jacket star Ella Purnell, had no clue she has lived her entire life inside a subterranean vault, where every need and want has been satisfied, while generations and generations await the day when it is safe to surface. Yeah, and I think the subplot of the vaults were they're effectively experimenting on humans. That was a very, the conspiracy, and I feel like that would make a good TV series, because you just come across a vault with a thing happening, and you need to investigate that thing, then you find out the thing, and then you move on to the next vault. Because the vaults were the only actual like lead of civilization. Like outside, it was just barren wastelands. Now you came across a couple snippets of civilization. Like I know in 3 it was Megaton and New Vegas. I mean, New Vegas wasn't really barren as it was inhospitable in New Vegas. War 3, it was actually just barren. I mean, again, you found people, but me. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay, just checking. When a crisis forces Lucy to venture above on a rescue mission, she finds that the planet above remains a hellscape crawling with giant insects, voracious mutant animal abominations, and a human population of sun-baked miscreants who make the manners, morals, and hygiene of the gunslinging Old West look like Downton Abbey. The games are about the culture of division and haves and has not, that unfortunately have only gotten more and more acute in this country and around the world over the last decades. No one tells Vanity Fair for this exclusive look. What do you mean? Haves and have nots that unfortunately have only gotten more and more acute in this country. I mean, in Fallout, I mean, you either kill to have or you have not and get killed. Like, it's not. I don't understand. I don't really know how you can modernize or current day Fallout because it's literally the apocalypse. It's the. Well, I know this. Again, Christopher Nolan made pretty good TV, pretty good shows. I liked Westworld. I am one of few people that liked the fucking 3rd season of Westworld, even though everyone apparently universally hated it. But I don't understand what do you mean by have only gotten more and more acute in this country and around the world over the last decades? You mean everything that's been happening with like the Ukraine war and the whole thing with Hamas? I mean, why are you bringing real world things into fiction? That just doesn't make any sense. Lucy is nice, but Lucy is naive. In the Fallout universe, the human beings unfortunate enough to ride out the apocalypse in underground communities only had that option available to them because they had money. No. They had that option, basically. Now, I'm not going to say every single human being, but again, the point of the vaults were human experiments. Right? Like, I think you had a vault where they let a little bit of radiation in, and that entire vault became ghouls. And you had a whole vault where they pretty much, well, at least in 3, made everyone super mutants, which kind of retconned. And then there was the vault you came out of, which the whole point was to create civil unrest. I mean, because they had money, no. Again, maybe they did. Maybe, in a post-apocalyptic situation, I mean, the wealthy were the ones doing the experimentation. I mean, that would be an interesting idea to go down. But I don't think we have the creative talent nowadays. Now, I'm wanting to pull through for Nolan, but what he said in the previous paragraph, I'm like, huh? Are you just saying this just to shut Vanity Fair the fuck up? Had money. Forcing doe-eyed Lucy out into this sadistic Darwinian remnant of civilization opens the door for Fallouts to engage in some social satire as well as action and adventure, social satire, Darwinian remnants of civil. It's the apocalypse. That's the point. Like, where's the social satire in the apocalypse? Oh, people with money somehow surviving. What does that actually matter in the apocalypse? It might matter a little bit, but again, in New Vegas, you had Caesar's Legion. Again, these are people who've existed for hundreds of years after the fallout, quote unquote. So they, again, like Caesar's Legion in New Vegas, they had their own customs, their own beliefs, their own morality, and again, they didn't seem evil initially, and maybe there's some things you can agree with because they didn't care for crime, they didn't care for the powder gangers and fucking slaughtered them. And obviously their beliefs went head to toe with the NCR. But again, the NCR, they weren't angels either. They also had their ideas and morals and things of that nature. So I don't really know where the social satire can come from. Like, do you want them the current day? Like HBO hits The Last of Us. Shut the hell up about The Last of Us, which was also adapted from a blockbuster video game. The End of the World offers a rich opportunity to comment on the real one. No, it doesn't. Like, are you gonna try? You want them to turn Fallout into a telenovela, where they just no, I don't want that. I want it to be Fallout, which is character be placed in situation that's fucked up. Character goes to a place, and character fucks shit up. Like, I don't. I think that's all really anyone really asked for. I mean, if you ask for a deep, intrinsic story, right, you could get that. Or you could just get, apparently, social satire, and that's not what people want. Like, I think this is what made The Mandalorian 1 so good, because there wasn't much talking. It was a Mandalorian going to a planet, doing a thing, finding out a thing, beating the shit out of people, then moving on. And vice versa. And people were fine with that. Like, it wasn't social satire or anything. It was the third season when they threw the social satire in, and people thought it was shit. We got to talk about that in a wonderful, speculative fiction way, says Nolan, who directs the first 3 episodes. I think we're all looking at a world and going, God, at the world and going, God. Things seem to be heading in a very, very frightening direction. Looking at the world. You mean our world? I mean, sure, but people watch TV. People watch fiction to get away from that, Nolan. They don't watch fiction to go towards that. Like, the fuck? As Westworld demonstrated, Nolan has a fascination with the mix of mythology and psychology that make up human nature. His characters typically believe one thing about themselves while behaving in a radically different way under pressure. He previously created the series Person of Interest, about a world in which crime and terrorism can be predicted in advance, and co-wrote such films as The Prestige, The Dark Knight, and Interstellar with his filmmaker brother Christopher Nolan. Jonathan Nolan. Wait, Christopher Nolan, the brother. Jonathan, who goes by Jonah, is fond of plunging his fictional test subjects into situations that unsettled their deeply held beliefs. And again, I liked Westworld. Again, the first season was good. Second season kind of dragged, but I fucking loved the third season because it was world building. Like you see, how do I say this without spoiling it? It's like in the first couple seasons, you see people effectively being shitty, and you wonder why. And it's like, oh well, because they're rich, and it's like, no, because the world is shitty. Because in the third season, you find out that the world is shitty, and people just sort of make the most out of it, either being shitty or, you know, just doing their thing. And I think that's what made the third season so good, in my opinion. But, I mean, I guess if you're looking for social satire, you can make a situation where human beings and people are forced to do wrong for their own gain, right? Until they're met with a situation where, oh, maybe they shouldn't do this because here comes an overarching bad guy. Let's just say the super mutants, whatever, that threaten to effectively replace everybody and take it and experiment on everyone. So now all these different factions need to band together to deal with the overarching evil. Now I'm saying the super mutants because, well, that's how they made them in 3, but I mean, overarching baddie could be anybody. It could be the Enclave, could be the Brotherhood. I mean, the weird thing in 3 is the Enclave were actually the good guys because they wanted to because when you got the water chip, they wanted to give the water to everybody, right? Whereas the Brotherhood wanted to monopolize on the water chip that purified the radiated water. And that was one of the reasons why your father dipped the fuck out in 3. And honestly, your father had a better fucking story than you. And that's also my problem with 3. God damn it, I need to talk about this in another video. The problem with 3 is you did not feel like the main character. Because in the main even in any of the main story, they did not know what level you would be whenever you did the main story. So they assumed that you were like, I don't know, level fucking 1. So you had the Brotherhood with you, and there were some kill-stealing bastards. Even one of the best sequences in gaming with Liberty Prime, he was just a kill-stealer, right? And I did not like that. You know, I want to be the main character. And again, they fixed that in New Vegas because they made you the main character. Like, you were the person that set events off. You were the focal point of, you know, that Mr. House's plan, or the NCR's plan, or the Remnants, or the Brotherhood of Steel. You weren't just like floating camera that's watching things happen. So many of us have such naive ideas, even now, about everyone else's experiences, and it's one of the things I love about America. It's this giant manic collection of different experiences, different points of view, no one says. Desperation only exacerbates those fissures and fallout. As Parnell's do-gooder soon discover, Lucy is charming and plucky and strong. And then you see she's confronted with the reality of, hey, maybe the supposedly virtuous thing you grew up with are not necessarily that virtuous. If they are virtuous, they're crouched in a circumstantial virtuousness. It's a luxury virtue. Okay, that's a whole lot of... I've never seen a sentence that said so much, but means so little, like virtue. Like, what does that even mean in this context? Like your ideas and the things you value. I mean, in the post-apocalyptic wasteland, I think most people value staying alive Despite, at least in 2, I mean, the idea was, the living kind of envied the dead, right? I mean, it's like you're alive, but you're suffering, and some people were like, some of the characters were like, well, I wish I wouldn't have survived, or this and that. And again, that's sort of an interesting philosophical argument. It's like if you live, but your value of life is diminished so far, like the question becomes, what is the point of living at that point? I think that's something Fallout should delve in. Like, if you really need the social satire, I think that's something you need to delve into, as opposed to, oh, people have different ideas, people have different virtues, and blah 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 luxury. Like, there is no luxury in the post-apocalyptic wasteland. You have your point of view about, because you never ran out of food, right? You guys were able to share everything because you had everything enough to share. I mean, I guess, sure, whatever. And then these assholes. The Fallout series tracks her collision with the hard reality of other people's experiences and what happened to the people who, frankly, were left behind, left to die, no one says. We had a lot of conversation over the style of humor, the level of violence, the style of violence, says Howard, who is also an executive producer of the show. Look, Fallout can be very dramatic and dark and post-apocalyptic. Yeah, I think that's what I want. I want the dramatic, dark, post-apocalyptic, but you need to weave a little bit of a wink. I mean, it had humor, and it was fine, but knowing when to be humorous and when to be serious, again, that's something that most current Western shows cannot do. I think they thread that needle really well on the TV show. Fans of the game should know that everything in the series is officially part of the Fallout lore, and Bethesda was careful to make sure the script could coexist with previous storylines from the gaming title. See, now this is fine. I have no problem with this. We view what's happening in the show as canon, says Howard. That's what's great. When someone else looks at your work and then translate it in some fashion, he admits to being envious of some of the TV show's interpretation and additions. I sort of looked at it like, why didn't we do that? The prospect of the Fallout film or TV show has been in the either for, in the ether for years, but Howard was always resistant to it. I've taken countless meetings with producers or heard pitches, and nothing ever felt like the right fit, he says. Or maybe I was wondering a little, how will it affect the franchise? I took a very cautious approach. I don't much care for all this. Let's get back to Fallout. As the Fallout show progresses, Lucy's journey intersects with two other lead characters who are new to the universe. One of them is a wannabe soldier, Maximus Aaron Moten, the tragic PD from the Nida, who grew up above ground, but like Lucy, was also raised in a cloistered family of sort, a brutal collective of warriors called the Brotherhood of Steel. Uh, See, I think they're going to go the Fallout 3 version of the Brotherhood of Steel or Fallout 4, where they're just big, zealous assholes in suits. Because, again, in 1, that's not who they were. Like, they were trying to preserve technology, trying to preserve knowledge, so when civilization starts up again, they would have a leg to stand on. They've effectively failed. So I sure hope they don't go with, oh, Brotherhood of Steel are zealous assholes and, I don't know, fucking bigots. It's a little bit of the Marine Corps. It's a little bit of the Knights Templar. It's kind of weird fusion. It's this kind of weird fusion, Nolan says. In the absence of a federal government, you just had all this military Lucy, what the hell? Military hardware lying around. Who would get it? Who would get it? And how would they maintain control of it? The answer is the Brotherhood, which Nolan describes to be of being fueled by a mutual version of patriotism, religion, loyalty, and fraternity. So they're frat boys in armor. See, they've never gotten the Brotherhood right since 1, in my opinion. Except in New Vegas. In New Vegas, they actually got them right. Their control comes from the battalions of super soldier knights in shining power armor who stalks the landscape enforcing the Brotherhood's notion of order. Maximus fills a role that's straight out of medieval times. He's a squire, Nolan says. This is a drawing on the classic Arthurian knight legend where life was cheap and you had a squire as long as they were useful. They had to prove their worth. They had to prove their valor and their strength, and if they didn't, they were kind of cast aside. Now I don't want to read all of this, but my whole thing is, I mean this right here, he looks like he could be a cool character right here. I mean, apparently you got her, who is, like he said, the wide-eyed, bushy-tailed main character, which is fine, but then obviously there's no comments here. But okay, my whole thing is, again, I sure hope, like usually when things start out, they talk about one thing, but I sure hope they don't go with the whole, oh, trying to turn Fallout into a telenovela. Like, I want to see moral conundrums. I want to see action. I want to see the main character suffering. You know, I want to see, conflict. I don't want just people yapping their mouths about social satire. I don't think that's going to benefit anybody. But, I mean, that's all I got to say about this. See ya.